Recently, there seems to be kind of a trend of people advertising and many even switching over from Windows to Linux. And while you can find many success stories, there is also the other side of many discovering issues, certain incompatibilities, or just fundamental design choices that they might not like. I've been daily driving Linux for 4 years. Wait, is that right? I play video games, create videos, use it for all my other work, and I had my fair share of problems with it. So in today's video we're going to take a look at Linux and discover if it is for you, or if you should maybe still stick to Windows for the time being. Let's get into it. This video was made possible by channel members of our community. If you want to participate in selecting new video topics, see what's going on behind the scenes and gain access to various tips and tricks, then please make sure to check out the join button or the link in the video description down below. Let's start off with some of the initial hurdles that a user that is switching over from Windows might experience. Let's say you got caught in the hype, or maybe Microsoft has been getting on your nerves recently, and you made the decision that you want to try out Linux. You have been watching some YouTube videos, maybe looked up some online posts, and are now faced with the choice. Which Linux do you install? If you are a gamer, then you're often confronted with Bassite, Nobara or CachyOS. If you look for something beginner-friendly, you get Linux Mint, PopOS or Ubuntu. Then you hear people use other distros like Fedora, Arch or KDE Neon. There is just a paralyzing choice of different Linux versions out there, and it often feels like that if you're choosing wrong, then you're missing out on performance or certain optimizations. Truth be told, in most cases it doesn't even matter, because what is Windows? Windows is not a gaming operating system, it's a work and consumer-oriented OS. Let's just take gaming as an example. Many like to look up videos about special optimizations for Windows or drivers. And while some of those optimizations might help a little bit with FPS, generally it doesn't really make a difference at all. Translating that over to Linux, many gaming related distributions that promise optimizations are essentially just that. They do perform better on paper and sometimes in some benchmarks, but the difference usually doesn't really matter all that much. Where they do shine, however, is that they lower the learning curve when starting out by offering custom starter guides, pre-installed applications, or by limiting the ability to mess around with your system on purpose. Many Linux distributions are just that at some point someone decided that they don't like certain things about it, so they made some adjustments and re-released it under a different name. Kind of oversimplified, but you get the point. So for anyone that is just starting out with Linux, there are usually only two things that you need to look out for. How does the Linux distribution look and feel? Like, how do you want it to look if you're just starting out? And how often is it updated? Fedora, my personal favorite, gets a new major update twice a year, and they ship newer core components than so-called long-term support releases. Have you been using Windows LTSC on your PC? If you don't even know what that is, then you maybe shouldn't go for a Linux distribution that has a slower update pace. Now, to clarify, it's not that those distributions are worse. In fact, they might be even better for you if you feel like your system is updating too fast. But all I am saying is that the update cycle matters, especially if you're looking into getting the most recent optimizations and performance improvements. Let's get into application support and the overall difficulty on Linux. I often see quite negative posts about having to use the command line, or that the average user or gamer should not switch because this or that application or even game is not compatible. How much of that is actually true? Well, I'm going to lay it out for you. I only use the command line like twice a year, and in most cases I could use desktop functionalities. I use it for the installation and fixing of DaVinci Resolve, my video editing tool, which is unfortunately not really built for modern distributions. As for the rest, again, as a gamer and someone that uses their PC for work, I basically never have to use the command line, like ever. How did I manage to do that? What about all the incompatibilities that you often see online, that Wi-Fi or Bluetooth are not working? Well, it's simple really. I chose a distribution with a faster update cycle and didn't try to fix issues because my hardware doesn't have any. Okay, good for me I guess. The rule of thumb is that if you don't want, or maybe even never had to deal with drivers on Windows, and your device is not working correctly out of the box on Linux, not even on a distribution that updates frequently, then maybe you shouldn't try to force it, because your experience won't be great. And the same goes for specialized hardware. Because the Linux desktop does not have much market share yet, many companies just don't develop anything for it. And therefore, some piece of hardware often requires workarounds, which by no means are official. And many of the negative blog posts come exactly from that issue. People are being forced to use the command line to apply patches, install third-party drivers manually, or have to rely on some command line tool to reconfigure their stuff. A typical PC user should not be required to use the command line on Linux, but it all depends on how willing they are and how well it already works from the get-go. Would you stay on macOS if a critical Windows feature you miss isn't working? Sure, you can try to work around that and maybe even get it to work. Linux is similar in that regard. You can try to manually fix issues by using the command line, but it shouldn't be required in the first place. So if you run into certain software or hardware issues, then maybe Linux is not ready for you just yet. Pick the right tool for your job. And the same goes for gaming. I have a Windows installation on an external SSD, just in case there is a game I want to try out that isn't Linux compatible. Often the game would work on Linux, but we're still not able to play because of anti-cheat solutions not supporting Linux, or that it's just not enabled. But the reality is that you simply cannot play every game on Linux right now. Not as long as developers or publishers enable support somehow. Generally, if you want to use Linux as your daily driver, you should evaluate on what you realistically need. Application support for popular solutions is just not the same as on Windows. If you need Microsoft Office or Photoshop to work, then even though you might be able to get them running, is that something you want to deal with? The difficulty that many are experiencing on Linux is by fixing issues or incompatibilities. But the average user should not have to deal with that. Linux is mostly repository based. If you want to install an application, if it isn't in the software store or there isn't a popular and well-tested way for compatibility solutions like wine, Lutris bottles or similar, then again, if you need some command line tinkering, then Linux might not be ready for you. It's not that Linux is harder, it's just that it hasn't reached the amount of support needed for your exact use cases to function without much effort. Like I said, I basically use the command line like twice a year. The rest of the time I just use my PC like I would on Windows and it just works. The point is that daily driving Linux is something that can be incredibly easy. The less specialized your use cases are, like if you only need a web browser, then the less likely it is that you will ever need to use the command line. Is it for everyone? Not yet, but Linux has so much potential, it's crazy. The reason on why I enjoy talking about Linux that much is not because I have an agenda against Microsoft or that there is some imaginary ideal in my mind, but because when I tried Linux all those years ago, I was impressed by how freaking easy it was to use it without any proper knowledge. All that I would have needed to know was how to install an operating system and that I should ideally rely on repositories instead of manually searching for programs, and that was essentially it. And I think that many, and I really mean many, can switch to Linux in the exact same way that I did. Install it and have no problems whatsoever. But then again, it might not just be the right tool for everyone yet. Anyway, what I want to hear now is, do you consider switching to Linux or are maybe already using it? What are your experiences with it? And do you think differently about its difficulty than me? Please let us know in the comment section down below. Before I end this video, I quickly wanted to mention that if you want to support the channel and make even better videos, then please feel free to check out our membership program as well as our online shop, whereas each sale helps to support various open source projects. If you've liked this video, then please make sure to show it with a like, and also don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on any future Linux videos just like this one. I hope you had a blast watching, and all that's left to say now is good morning, good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. I'll see you around.